Welcome to the Searching for Meaning podcast. My name is Gonzalo, and I'm joined by my brother Tiago. Welcome.
Greetings.
And in today's episode, I know it's been a couple of weeks, whoopsie,
Oops.
but we're first of all, I guess it is gonna tie out a lot with the theme of today's podcast. But first of all, apologies and thank you for being listening right now. And from now on, the schedule is to be every Monday. Um, okay, we're gonna record every Monday. I still haven't decided. We still haven't decided if it's gonna be uploaded every Monday, but look forward to regular uploads. And I want to start this episode with a quote. I was looking back to our page, and this one really struck out to me, which is by Jordan Peterson, and it is quoting: "Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping." And in a way, um, because a lot of times, we have this, most people have this kindness towards other people and more understanding for what other people do. It's like, oh, maybe we didn't succeed so well, but it's understandable. It's like, oh, it happens, etc., etc. But then when it comes to our own internal dialogue, it's like, oh my god, you fucking piece of shit, why didn't you succeed? You're worthless. And then it's like we don't realize that we would not talk like that to anyone else, either that we like or that we don't like. In a lot of cases, you wouldn't even talk like that to people you hate, but then you're talking to yourself that way internally. And even though it may seem like, you may think like, oh, everyone does it, or oh, it's just normal, like that starts to build up a very negative, not only self-image but way of going about things, which is, oh, if I succeed, a lot of times you may not even give praise to yourself. It's like, yeah, that's what's supposed to happen. But then if you don't, you're like, you're worthless and you have no value anymore. And I guess this is going to be one more kind of a more, not so much like discipline, super hard podcast, more of one to kind of, you know, give you more this perspective that you are just a person. Everyone is at the end of the day. And I feel like nowadays, trying not to diverge too much, like with Instagram, with all these things where you only see the highlights of people's lives, it's easy to, when you're going through a rough moment, to think like, oh my gosh, if only I could be like the model on Instagram. She's always perfect. She's always living on the perfect sunlight at 5 p.m. But it's like, no, she's not. She just takes the pics at that time. So it's kind of really to put into context and to understand that for the most part, you're doing perfectly fine. Not saying you shouldn't strive for more, but you shouldn't treat yourself as, a worthless sack of shit, because you're not, most likely.
And even treating yourself like that, I think, because what people usually justify that with is like, oh, but if I don't treat myself that way, I won't get results. And that's actually, at least in my own experience, that's false. When you treat yourself like that, at least for me, I get no results, and I just keep calling myself a piece of shit, because it's like,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to keep going and staying on the track and on the path for better things when you constantly keep telling yourself that you're crap and that you're worthless and that what you're doing isn't enough. You need some positive reinforcement to keep going on the right way. And this is something everyone struggles with. Even I think this is a problem that stems from all these comparisons we do daily because of social media, like you said, Instagram. We tend to think that all these photos and videos we see are like, they represent what reality is, when it's not. That's like the perfect like chamber to create what perfection would be, or what we try to make seem as perfection. But when you think about it, even those influencers and all these people that use Instagram and have millions of followers, they probably think the same things you do. They arrive home some days and they're like, oh man, why do I not have more followers? Why am I not prettier? Why do I only look good in this light? Everyone has these doubts, and it's not something exclusive to, if you're like a poor person, if you live in a third world country. It's like everyone has these things, and it's very important to realize that it's not something that's going to go away once you reach a certain place, or once you have something. It's not like you can justify that to yourself saying, oh no, but I only really treat myself that way because I don't have $1 million. Once I have $1 million, I'll stop with the negative talk and I'll enjoy life. And it's like, that's not how it happens. Once you reach $1 million, you want more and you want something else, and you always keep treating yourself unless you actually acknowledge what's happening and take the time to change it.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I feel like that's a crucial point where people always think that if only they had something they don't have now, then they would find their self-worth and their value and everything would be fine. when in reality you get there and then there's a new, I'm not even gonna call it problem. It's like there's a new obstacle, and it's interesting because the quote we posted today, the day of recording, like Friday, is, and let me just go here. It's one by Viktor Frankl, which is what man, human, actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for some goal worthy of him. It's not, it's realizing that it's not a life of just comfort and no struggle that you want. It's a life of, meaningful struggle. Because at the end of the day, those overcoming of obstacles and that, solving of those problems is what's going to bring meaning. Like, you don't see anyone, I don't think you can see anyone that's fulfilled with their lives just going about life for the most part, just being like, yeah, I wake up, I do this, then I come home, all the same. There's always that, a slight resistance, quote unquote, from the world that they're trying to overcome. Whatever that may be. It can be, maybe they picked up painting and they're trying to get better at that. Maybe they run a super successful business. Maybe they're just, trying to be a better parent or something like that. There's always that thing that's in your way to overcome. And that's what brings the meaning. It's not, that's why a lot of times I feel like going a bit to this side when people are like, how do I find my meaning in life? It's like, you can't just sit around and wait for it. It's, the meaning is not, it's whatever you give it, but you gotta, a lot of times comes from these struggles towards something that is meaningful to you. And that's why, there's no formula, there's no, you know 5 steps for meaning and stuff like that. It is just a very personal path for every person. And that being said, and going back now a bit to the what we were talking about, the original Jordan Peterson quote, I feel like that's the first step in a way. It is it is also something he says, which is, before you try to fix the world, do your bed or fix your room in a way. Handle your stuff and then go fix other stuff. And that's the first, like, the core stuff is your inner talk, because it's the most basic thing to you. It's, in a way, it's one of the things that's most part of yourself, more than your room, more than your possessions, more than all these things, is the way you talk to yourself. There's even this great quote as well, because a lot of times people are like, they don't feel good about themselves and all these things, and a lot of times people go to somewhere else. And there's this quote which is, wherever you go, there you are. Like, you can't run away from who you are, from this self-talk you're having, how you talk to yourself internally. And yeah, it's like one of those things, until you go in, nothing outside is going to change regarding that, if it makes sense.
Yeah, it's not. It's exactly that. It's not something that happens randomly. It's not like you have an epiphany and you suddenly start treating yourself right. I mean, for some very exclusive cases, maybe that can happen. I'm not saying it's impossible, but realistically, that's not what's going to happen. It's something that, like anything else, it requires work. It's a skill, believe it or not, to talk positively. Not I don't want. I like the word positive because I think most people associate it with like positive self-talk and looking in the mirror and smiling, and it's not that. You can't smile in the mirror if you don't feel happy. It's like, for you to have these things, for you to have happiness and purpose and all these things that most people strive for, it needs to be conscious. It's something that you're striving for daily, or not daily but regularly, because it doesn't just happen out of nowhere. Like I said previously, you don't just get $1 million and then you become happy and you get purpose. I think this is a mistake people make, and I certainly made it in the past, and sometimes even make, because I just forget it. It's that it's conscious. It's not, you're not going to talk to yourself the way you want to, or the way that's properly like Jordan Peterson says, like you were talking to a friend randomly, because most people don't do that. They talk negatively to themselves. They're always used to saying, you're not enough, you don't have this, you don't have this body, you don't have this intelligence. And it's not something that's going to appear out of nowhere. Like, I don't even know. It's a very difficult thing to explain to people, because it's like, I think it's a really one of those useful things that psychologists probably know how to do. I talk about this because in the other day I was actually watching a video that you suggested, which is like a psychologist for gamers. He has this channel on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Dr. K, and he does these live interviews with streamers about mental health and just what like their main issue is and what they want to fix. And all of them kind of have this the same problem of like they feel that they can't complain, that they don't have enough, that they have enough and they can't complain because
Yeah.
they're in this great position. I think most of us can relate to this. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably live in an advanced country. You know, you're privileged in a sense. You have a lot of things that previously humans didn't have access to, and so you can have this sense that who am I to complain? Who am I to treat myself well when I already have all these things and I'm not making the most out of them? You know, I feel the way you're thinking, and I know why you're thinking this way, but it's not helpful. You know, it's not going to get you to a
Yep.
better place in life. It can get you to a better place externally. People may look at you and say, "Oh, look at him, he's doing so well," but internally, you're still the same mess. You know, you're still thinking the same
Yeah.
things that you were thinking when you started, and that you thought the external world would solve.
Totally. And I'm very glad you brought this point of Dr. K, because in these interviews with streamers and a lot of the people who watch them, for them that would be the dream. You know, you play video games or whatever you do for 8 hours, you get a six-figure salary for that. And in a way, you look at that, and for those people, oh my gosh, he's living the perfect life. It's also like what the fuck does he has to complain? But then when you hear these talks, and because Dr. K is an amazing, I don't know what you'd call it, psychologist, therapist, whatever it is that the actual name is, he's so good at it that the person kind of lowers their defenses and it gets honest about these things. And you see that those problems are probably the same problems in a lot of times when they talk problems they had before, like problems, I hear a lot like their parents are not as proud as they want them to be because it's not like a university career, for example. Like that, you said they feel like they can't complain because they have it so good, and then they have to hold those things inside because they feel like no one can relate to that and they can't talk to that about anyone. And then when you see the other side, the actual real side of it, you realize, oh, they're very successful on the outside, but on the inside they're kind of like me, kind of the person who's watching. And I feel like that shines a very bright light on the fact that you kind of have to go inside. Otherwise, nothing external will ever fulfill the quote unquote hole you're trying to fulfill with it. Because all of those, like I remember XQC, for example, one very popular streamer, you could clearly see when he was talking about his dad, he deeply wanted his approval and he still hadn't got it, even though he was one of the most successful people. If you look at the general world, he's in the 1%, probably high 1% of people in the world, but his parents still weren't proud because he doesn't have a university degree, for example. And that's something that he has to deal with internally. Like no amount of getting more and more and more will kind of solve that problem for him, because then you realize, even in that case, on the one hand, if you keep doing what you're doing, they're never going to be as proud as you want. On the other, even if you then did what they want for them to be proud of you, you'd feel like it's very conditional, and then as well that you have to give up what you love. So it's like the only solution is for you to be okay with the situation, which requires you meditating on the issue and you actually solving it within yourself and not fixing the other people, for example, because even if you fix them, then you're always dependent on what they need. If you fix it externally, you're always dependent on other people, kind of approval and what they see of you. And so in a way, and I get why don't most people don't do this and why everyone avoids it, me included, because it is uncomfortable. And it is uncomfortable to, when these emotions arise, for you to just sit with them and be like, all right, let me take 15 minutes and just see what's happening here inside, as opposed to, yeah, let me just watch a YouTube video, let me not do this right now, I'm busy. Even though, if those things keep building up, it then will probably lead to a moment where you can't stuff any more things down.
Yeah, it's like you said. We talk about it. I think we've talked about it previously in other podcasts. It's like it's bad fuel. It's not clean energy. You can use it for a while, but eventually your gas tank or whatever the terminology is for cars, I don't know shit about it. It gets
Yeah.
it gets fucked up. You can't run on it forever. You actually need to solve it one day, and better sooner than later, because it's one of those things. The more it builds up, the more fucked up it gets. Especially if you're like going back to the streamer issue. If you're a successful person, I feel these issues are just amplified because I think you just have to stuff them up for so long, and everything is amplified. Because it's also visual. I especially like when I saw the one I saw was from Pokimane. I was like, man, that's rough, because this girl started streaming when she was like 17 or something, and that's all every single thing she's done from there on with her life has been known publicly to
Yeah.
millions of people. And like, if you are a young person, you know how many mistakes you make at this age. You know what
Yep.
and imagine having millions of people commenting on that, and especially because she's a girl on a platform like Twitch, she's commonly associated with other like female streamers, and there's like this whole kind of negative aura around it on gaming culture. It's just so rough, the things
Yep.
she probably has to deal with every day. And I mean, it's so easy for people to comment these things. That's a problem also. That's a whole nother issue. But
Yeah.
imagine dealing with that every single day, and I can only like feel this amazing sense of empathy for her, because it's like, I mean, good job on still not having crashed as a person, because
Yeah.
seeing that stream, she started crying at like 4 minutes in. Just when he asked,
Yeah, it
"How are
was-
you? How are you doing?" He just asked it, and she like started
Yeah.
tearing up. And it's
Yeah.
especially these people. I think they aren't open to these discussions of even acknowledging their feelings. And this is all just amplified. But the normal person also thinks this. It's like they think it's not okay for you to feel something. It's like like Mark Manson calls it, the feedback loop of hell. You feel sad,
Yeah.
and then you feel angry because you feel sad, and you never get to just actually feel sad or actually just feel disappointed. You have all these other things because you automatically have this assumption, and these can come from very a lot of things. Mostly it's kind of like how you were raised up. I feel it all goes back to that. Like Neil Strauss, when I read his book on, it was actually on relationships, but it really cleared
Yeah.
that up. Like a lot of issues people have, it's just how they were raised. It's really like daddy and mommy issues.
Yeah.
that
It's not kind of
aren't,
your
like,
fault.
They're
It's-
never fixed.
Yeah.
And then they carry you on with you until adulthood, and you don't know what they are or where they stem from. It's just like
Yeah.
the human mind is so crazy in how it works, and how long we can go on without addressing these issues
Yeah,
and still live as
true.
normal humans.
Yeah, and I'd like to kind of just close this one before going to a more happy thing, which is kind of boil this down. If you feel sad, if you feel bad, if you feel like you're not enough, welcome to the club of all humanity. Everyone feels like that at certain points, and it's okay to feel like that. Whatever, at the bottom line, what I've learned that works the best for me personally, not saying for you, but it's to realize any emotion that you feel is okay to feel. How you act on it, that's different. But whatever it is that you're feeling is okay to feel. If you act on anger with violence, that's not as okay in my eyes. But to just feel that anger and then allow that to come up is totally fine. And if you deal with that in a healthy way of kind of realizing why it's there, dealing with that, letting it go, perfectly fine. But you shouldn't be kind of quote unquote hurting yourself just because you're feeling a certain way, essentially. What I'd like to move on now, and kind of I guess we would finish on that, is to talk about because Thiago just beat a personal record on deadlift. How? And as he was telling me, it was a big mental block that had to be overcome. So, but I'll let him take the floor and kind of share the story.
Yeah, so basically the story was I was stuck on 160 kilos on the deadlift for 6 months now. It's actually half a year. It's crazy how long it has been. And it used to be my best lift, actually, but it just became my squat because, I mean, it's not bigger than my deadlift, but proportionally, it's just better because my deadlift was stuck for so long. But so this was 6 years. I was stuck at this weight.
6 months. Calm down. Not
6 months. 6 months. Yeah. 6 years. I haven't even. I was like 40 kilos. Yeah, but so 6 months trying to get this weight. And the other day, I think like a week ago, I tried my personal best. The first thing I tried was deadlifts, and I was like warming up on them, and you go up like gradually. So you started with 60 kilos, 100 kilos, 120, and you go up gradually. And my last warm up was 155, which is 5 kilos less than my current personal best. And I was getting all hyped up to do that lift. I drank coffee that day. I never drink coffee. I was listening to metal. I was pumped up, and when the moment came, I couldn't lift it. It didn't even budge off the floor, and I was like, "What the fuck is happening?" I literally. The past week before that, I lifted 152 kilos and a half 3 times. So like, how does this doesn't make any sense? You know, my body is physically capable of this. I know it.
Yeah.
And so I was like really, really pissed off, and I was like, what the fuck, man? This won't happen today. And so I went in again and tried to lift it, and the same thing happened. I couldn't lift it, and at this point I was like, it was a mixture of like humiliation, disappointment, and anger, and I was like, oh my fucking god, not again. This can happen
Yeah.
again. So I took this moment to actually realize that this isn't productive. You know, feeling these things aren't gonna help at this moment. I just sat down in front of the bar, kind of like took a couple deep breaths, like Wim Hof style, just like through the mouth and just looking like a weirdo in the middle of the gym. And actually, that allowed me to kind of reset my mind. You know, to just be like, okay, whatever happens, it's okay, man. I can do it another time. It's part of the process. But at the same time, I said, fuck it, I'm still gonna try it. So I put in an extra 10 kilos, 5 kilos on each side of the bar, and I was like, okay, I mean, if I get this, I get this, and it's very cool. If I don't, whatever. Next time I can do better. And to my surprise, I got in there. I put on my metal. I got angry, whatever, and I lifted it. It was very hard. You know, I almost decided not to go for it, but I started trembling. My body was like shaking, but I got it. And at the end of it, when I got it and put it back down, I remember being like, "Huh, that's very strange. Like, how does this?" Because at that point, I knew that it was absolutely mental, because my body was in fact able of lifting those 165 kilos, which was 5 more than my previous best. But just 5 minutes ago, it couldn't lift 10 kilos less than that. And that
do you think like because like do you think that because I imagine, you know, this was the second time you're trying, right?
Yeah.
So like 6 months had gone without progress.
Third time. Actually.
Third time. So like 6 months go by, no progress in that. And at that moment, are you thinking like, do you think a lot of that block was like, you kind of felt like you needed to, otherwise it's like,
yeah. I felt like, okay, if I don't get this, in my mind it was like, I don't know. If I don't get this, it's like kind of a complete failure, because it's 6 months, you know?
Yeah.
It's a lot of time I dedicated to this, because my other lifts are going up, you know? It's not like something, a problem of like, not eating enough, or it's everything else is going up. I'm getting stronger. Just in that one thing,
it was mental.
I am not getting stronger. It's just I think it's completely mental. You know, it was one of those things of just kind of unblocking your mind. Because if someone probably put 165 kilos and told me it was 150, I would have lifted it. It would have been harder, but I was like, I would have lifted it.
It's crazy how the human mind, you know, works. Because like you 1 second you can lift a certain amount of weight, and then not second, but like a few minutes after, you could lift
10 more
kilos than that. And it's, and like from what you're telling me, it was like that block of just like, you know, being okay with failure, being okay with, because like at the moment you're like, oh, okay, whatever happens. It's like it unblocked and
because it was kind of like a Hail Mary, you know, like, okay, an extra 10 kilos, what the
Hey,
fuck?
fuck
I'm
it.
probably not gonna get it. Fuck it, and I got it. It's weird.
Dumb. That's not, and it just shows as well, like you had to go that through twice, like hitting that barrier and being frustrated as fuck. Because I remember how frustrated you were from not getting that, to then now getting it. But then it's interesting because now it's like, okay, you get that, and there's like, oh, there's the next level. Now it's the 170 or whatever it is. But yeah, I feel like we can end on that nice story. A nice inspiration for you, the listener, to go out and deadlift 160 kilos,
shit,
5 kilos. But yeah, other than that, more regulars uploads from now, and I hope to see you guys next week. Other than that, have a good one, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye bye.